All right. Well, we do have the pleasure of welcoming Stephen up here. Stephen, how are we doing, brother? Stephen, mic check, mic check. Are they tapping your systems?
Can you hear me?
There he is. Yes, we can. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Hey, Reggie. Hey, man, how you been? Haven't seen you in like ages.
Reggie's gone now. He had to leave, unfortunately.
Reggie's an old
Yeah,
friend.
I was going to ask, what's your thoughts on his whole story?
Reggie's a smart dude. I mean, he's like, he's been around a long, long time. Uh, with Veritasium, is that what you mean?
Yeah, Veritasium, yeah.
Yeah, but sorry. I don't really remember the specifics because it was a number of years ago. Um, but can you remind me exactly what happened there?
Well, he filed for a patent. He calls it the DeFi patent back in
Right.
2013, and he was awarded it. He got one patent here in the United States. He has two in Japan. He sued Circle and Coinbase.
Yeah.
He has since withdrawn those cases. Coinbase actually came after him and sued him in the patents court. And I'm simplifying this, and I don't fully understand it, but from what I could gather in the interview that I just did, they were rejected, and the patents court kind of ruled in Reggie's favor. And so Coinbase was not able to kill kind of his patent by saying that Brian Armstrong had one, I guess, shortly before Reggie had filed his. And so that brings him to where we're at right now, which it sounds like he's like kind of in the middle of any other further actions or deals. So that's kind of his story. And what ended up happening was the SEC came after him for Veritasium, and they made him sell, and they had to give up 98% of the supply, and he paid like over $9 million in fines, I believe.
No, I mean, look, I can't. You know, this is my personal opinion from knowing Reggie. I've known Reggie since 2011, 2012, maybe, and he's always been a stand-up guy. He understands. He really does actually understand the tech. When it came down, it looked like he was getting targeted. And now, after what I've been through, I would be leaning very heavily towards he got targeted. And look, I mean, I'm not going to mention the name of the companies that you just mentioned, but you know, even though they seem to be in disagreement with the SEC, you know, what you're seeing on the front end is not really what's actually happening on the back end. To not put that in code, like just because the SEC is going after somebody doesn't mean that they're not a favorite of theirs. Sometimes that's like a sleight of hand to throw people off. Like specifically on with Coinbase.
So while we got you here, Stephen, I got to take the opportunity to ask, you know, what did you think? You know, you got on that Twitter space. I was able to record that. And I did share that about a 13-minute exchange where you started to get your story out. And you alluded to maybe some actions coming shortly. So what's the update with Stephen? How's life going?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's like kind of freaking out about those guys, but like, yeah, I mean, Rand's a very close friend of mine, and I know Mario for a long time. I know Scott for a long time. So, like, you know, I think there was a certain level of deference that they gave me that they probably wouldn't have given. And they know I'm not. If you notice, nobody there questioned my veracity. Questioned, you know, they were just, what's the ramifications of what you're doing? And I think that's what their concern is, and I understand that. And I'm, you know, I'm not trying to cause. You know, I don't want this to harm crypto. I want this to help crypto. I don't even want it to harm Ethereum. I'm not like against Ethereum. I'm against, you know, some people that are what they're doing. In terms of what I'm dropping, uh, the recording that I'm dropping, I just tested the NFT. It's an NFT. Everybody will be able to get it. It'll be free. We have an Ethereum version, and we have a version that'll be on Ripple. So you can download either one. And what that is a 3 hour. So Vitalik calls me early 2015, And just give you a little preview. And the Ethereum Foundation is basically running out of runway. And it's, believe it or not, ironically here, it's Lubin's fault for mismanaging the funds that came in from the ICO. So he needs to reorganize it. And me, who was, according to them, not very involved, and he only met a couple times, you'll hear for yourself, I reorganize every single aspect of the entire foundation. He didn't. What's interesting about that is there's a lot of things in there that I think will shock people. That why are we where we are today? So it's like a piece of crypto history, and like I told him, I'll just give you like one example. I said, go on 1.0, go on low maintenance mode because you only have so much money left. I said, take your best programmers right now, put it on 2.0 because we knew that 1.0 would not scale. And so if you know it's not going to scale, and the problem that they had later on was so many people were on the chain now, it was like changing engine in mid-flight. But in 2015, I'm telling him this before it goes live, by the way. I'm telling him to put a second team, take the best programmers off of 1.0, because we're pretty sure at that point that Gavin was going to pull it off and launch 1.0 and put it onto 2.0. And they could have launched 2.0 probably by the end of the year. What that means is, like, just think about the ramifications of that. Everybody goes on ETH, but ETH doesn't actually scale, so nothing can actually work. So you're never going to have a killer dApp. So like nothing, like if you realize everything about Web3 and all of this, like, does anybody actually use anything? I mean, we're trading tokens. It's like, it's like the industrial revolution, electricity comes out and nobody uses the light bulb or, any kind of invention. They just trade electricity, right? And like, that's basically what we're doing. And we're just trading these tokens, but the tokens are actually supposed to have functionality. And this is, a huge invention, right? What Satoshi gave us. So you got to question kind of like, why didn't they do that? And instead he took off for China. Like, that's kind of interesting, right?
So, now, Stephen, you've said that you don't want to harm Ethereum, right? And to me, what I've gathered and picked up is that you are operating as a true patriot, right? This country has been hijacked by a bureaucracy beast that has been weaponized against the American people and entrepreneurs that are trying to build legitimate products and services to better humanity. And so what is the end goal then? You don't want to harm Ethereum, and I'm in the same camp. Many of the XRP community members, although we get criticized for being a little edgy and a little much at times, most of us want just a level playing field, and we want to be able to just build this technology and ecosystems out. So what is the end goal, I guess, for your mission that you are now on?
Hey, I mean, so look, I'll give a preview. I don't mind saying this. The lawsuit that I'm filing, that's for to recover like real losses that the government caused by fabricating that case. They didn't only just, in fabricating that case, they also effectively, several projects that I was on, they, in exchange for those people cooperating, they let them take my stake. And those people, everybody in crypto, I'm going to reveal, they'll be revealed who they are, because those people in crypto knew that by doing that, the government I was the target, but they also knew that they were trying to get every major player in crypto. And so I spent 4 years, it's unprecedented that I got out of it, with evidence and that. So I'm just giving you like a little bit of background there. But I told the government to go bleep themselves when they said, I said, look, I don't have any information. I'm not going to tell you anything. This is a witch hunt. What's my goal? So my point of that was, my lawsuit, all I have to say is, this is what the government did to me. that's like a simple, that's really simple. It's not very complicated. What I'm putting in it, that's the what they did to me. What you guys are discussing in terms of, let's say, ETHgate, and I've already said there's something else that's as big as ETHgate that somehow I ended up in the middle of that one too. Um, that's the why. And
Are we talking about the basically the hijacking of our capital markets, much bigger than just Ethereum,
right,
but
I don't believe
IPOs
that.
that were allowed to go?
I'd say I don't think they actually. It's interesting. Like everybody thinks that like they were favoring Ethereum, and they were, but it's like Ethereum was being used as a platform for fraud. Right? They didn't want it to scale. Scaling was not helpful. Like okay, they didn't want killer apps. They just wanted to keep churning out this thing that I unfortunately taught them. I said I taught them. I invented electricity, and they went and created the electric chair. I'm like, this wasn't the purpose. This is why I created the ICO. And so what they were really interested, this is where Ripple comes into play. They were really interested in having a decentralized appearing chain because and I know you can see she follows me on Twitter, on X, the woman that was running JP Morgan coin. So I was talking to them at the time. They had to get it out of JP Morgan because it just wouldn't work if like it's in one particular bank. So they put it on Ethereum so it would look like it was decentralized. Yeah, it wasn't decentralized, and then so they eventually sold it to Consensus, so it looked like a software company was running it, not a bank. Right. So all of this was for like you know to make it appear what Ripple actually is. They were trying to like look like oh, there's just a software company behind it. There's nobody that's part of the legacy banking system that's behind this. But really, that's what they ultimately cared about. The fraud that was created on Ethereum. We're pretty sure. I mean, you can see Boring Sleuth. He's right over the target. He's really right over the target. I don't know what that number is, but it's a big number. But that wasn't their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal was for that to be the monetary rails. That's my opinion, and I think it's pretty
And
clear.
they were projecting right after what you're telling us versus what they were saying about projects like Ripple and XRP, right? They were the ones that were offering a security. They were the ones that were committing fraud. Yet it was complete projection, and now you're, kind of exposing that. Now, in your opinion, Stephen, are most of the ICOs that were conducted, the underlying assets, we understand through the XRP ruling that most underlying assets will not be the security, but the ICO, the investment, the raising of those funds, that investment contract is the unregistered security. And like you said, you kind of created the beast with the ICO token factory that got created on top of Ethereum. And so, in your opinion, were most of those ICOs unregistered securities offerings?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, so just to put this in perspective, what I did was first I created the utility token, and so we were taking this digital, you know, piece of code basically, and every securities lawyer that based in the country said that this is going to be a security. The SEC said it's a security, and so I was trying to figure out a way. Is there a way to make this not a security? And it could very easily be a security or not a security. And I came up with this product narrative, right? And it's a lot more complex than that. But the point is, then I had to figure out a way to sell it. So those are two completely different things, right? So imagine if you're thinking about like you invent the stock and you invent a stock certificate and what a stock is and a share in a company, and then you have to figure out a way to sell it. So then you have to go invent the IPO, right? So it's kind of like that's how it worked out. I mean, I didn't intend it to work out that way, nor did I ever expect this to have this kind of ramification. So you've got two issues into your question. The ICOs, most of them tripped securities wires. Yeah, you had to be like I set up. You'll see that the way I set up the Ethereum one, Joe or Joe's the genius that did all the legal work on it, right? I mean, but you'll see all the documentation. Um, if they had followed that, that ICO would not have been an illegal securities offering. Now, there's some question about the fact that they used the funds to build the network, but let's just take that one aside. But in terms of, there's a secondary question though on how you're treating, let's say after the ICO, how you treat the token, right? You know, how you talk about the token, how you treat the token, and so you can continue to, you can here's a flip situation. You could have an ICO that is not an investment contract that, you know, under Howie, and then later on, you can turn that token into a security and sales of it into investment contracts by by later actions. You know, still under Howie because it's a continual test. It can, you know, this is not. It's not static for just one component of it. So it can go both ways.
So one could package up their XRP and put it into an investment contract and create a securities offering is essentially what you're talking about, right? They can go through multiple classifications or definitions, I guess.
Yeah, like I think Torres got the institutional sales right. I mean, there's, you know, the post that I put up about Joe, you know, flopping his mouth about, you know, I bought, you know, about the fact that if you buy in large quantities or you're buying to speculate, and then you've got Gensler on the video saying that Joe was a venture capitalist who speculated and bought 9.5%. And so I'm like, this is no inside information right now. I'm like, okay, according to what these two are saying, the current chairman of the SEC and Joe himself, like if you just put the two together, then the ICO was a securities offering because of Joe and his purchases. And so, no, you don't have to go like far to see that. Now, can you prove that? That's a whole other story. What was the rest of your question?
Yeah, I wanted to then ask, right now on this timeline, how soon can we expect some sort of actions on your behalf?
Well, the recording will be dropped this week. We are creating a website that's going to be a third-party website. Uh, um, a bunch of people in the XRP community, like the sleuths that you know, they'll have badges. So it'll be kind of like community run. It won't be mine. So I just wanted something that wasn't censored because I saw what happened to Die, and I got shadow banned for a while. I think I'm unshadow banned now, but we needed some place where we can put. And we're also creating. So anyway, the answer your question is the recording this week. The rest of it, I've got it all ready to go. It's the attorneys that have to kind of put it, get everything in order. So my hope is that it drops in December. You know, I've been working on this for a long time. It was a lot of stuff. I'll say something else. You know, I didn't just kind of come vocal in public without putting my ducks in a row beforehand. So in the very near future, one thing I noticed, and I tried to tell the XRP community all the way back in 21 what was going on, but they blew me off because they thought I was one of the bad guys. And so unfortunately, they didn't. But none of the real press has ever taken this seriously, or they start off with conspiracy theory. I think you're going to see the first major press. I'm not even talking about like a crypto magazine. I'm talking about like mainstream press covering this and exposing this for the first time as something that's been worked on for a long time.
Well, to your point, we see now articles circulating from Bloomberg and others about Joseph Lubin shorting his early folks at the company on consensus shares, right? The stock that they were entitled to. So that's now hitting not just mainstream crypto, but mainstream news, financial news on Bloomberg. and others. So I think you are right that this is, starting to get unveiled. I suspect that by the time this whole thing is played out, we're going to be watching Netflix documentaries about maybe what happened with you and some of the others, and I'm sure we'll be getting a Sam Bankman-Fried another special coming up on him here shortly. I wanted to get your take on the current ETF filings.
Yeah,
Do
so
you think that these things are going to?
go ahead.
Oh, did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, 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 go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, just your thoughts on the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Are those set to get approved here soon, in your opinion? And then, what are your thoughts on the Ethereum spot ETF? And I want to add my kind of opinion on this. How can you get a spot ETF approved if you can't disclose whether or not the underlying asset is a security or not? Which we know, because Gary Gensler, when he gets up on stage, cannot answer the question directly whether or not Ethereum is a security. So, is that going to be a sense of a point of pushback, or are they just going to get another kind of free pass, and the BlackRock boys will be allowed to get that Ethereum spot ETF too?
I mean, hopefully it comes through on when I post. I don't like to speculate, and if I do, I put it in the form of a question. And I'm not into conspiracy theories, and I like to have facts behind something. I just find it very, very odd where Senator Loomis was talking about the legislation being a 2024 discussion. Like she tabled it until 2024, and she said that, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's being fast tracked, and there was no discussion about there wasn't even a discussion about a Bitcoin spot being approved this early. Now all of a sudden, there's an application for an Ethereum spot, like, and that's all happening while this is heating up. And then to your point before, I think the reason that the press is happening right now is you guys, like the XRP community was like, I watched it. I was really in shock about how much you guys pressured and pressured and pressured, but they could always use conspiracy theory. They could always use that. I was just like the final piece that came, and with me, they can't say that because they know I was there. They know who I am. All these guys that are writing about me have been writing about me for 10 years. So it's like they can't make that credibility. So now all of a sudden, I was just kind of that final piece. But if it hadn't been for all of the buildup for 3 years from XRP, I don't think you would have seen that. I don't think I think the Bitcoin will be approved. I do not think the Ethereum one is going to be approved. That's going to require Gensler to put a position on it. What he said is he does not. He believes that the ICO was a securities offering, and he has acknowledged that Hinman made a speech, but he hasn't applied Ethereum to that speech. And if you saw McHenry was like, ready to like tackle him, is it a security or isn't it a security? Just give us an answer. And, he's not going to give it an answer. But it clearly seems they're trying to fast track it. What appears to me, if you put them together, is that I think the legislation is actually more important than the ETF, because that legislation codifies the Hinman speech, like it makes it law, and it also makes law that the SEC now doesn't have to go to court. It just says you're a security or not on some nonsense vague decentralization concept. They don't define what decentralization means. I know what they were intending it to mean, and I know why they're not defining it, and that will become public. But they're leaving that vague intentionally. So how is somebody supposed to, you have an arbitrary standard that's not defined, that they have full authority over in a law, but passed by Congress? That's a disaster. I mean,
You know, Speaking on confusion being added to the market from Gary Gensler and comments from these guys, what are your thoughts on what just took place the last week with FTX, the FTT token, just pumping about 400% after Chair Gensler says that FTX could potentially be revived? Is that, is he trying to cover his tracks here? Because we know how close he was with Sam Bankman-Fried and how close
Yeah.
FTX and Sam was with both sides of the aisle.
I mean, I put enough hints out there, how convenient, and look, there's no question that they have used FTX in order to basically decimate the industry. So that's not a question. The only question is, was it a setup? I can tell you my opinion a year before it was revealed, and I wasn't the only one. I spoke to some, a couple of other OGs, and we're like, this guy, something's wrong with this guy. We knew he wasn't like, to make it like a club, but like he wasn't one of us. Like we knew he wasn't. He was so far outside of any of the ethos of crypto. Something was off with him, and we believe there was something going on with the government. And my opinion, I'm not going to say anything factually, my opinion is that there was absolutely some kind of collaboration to allow that whole thing to happen, and almost it was just perfectly played the whole way. I'm going to write a piece on this, but it's kind of hard to write that piece without actually accusing people of things. I don't want to accuse them without having the evidence, though. We'll see. The SEC has 14 gigabytes of data on me, and they weren't involved in my false prosecution, so that's interesting. We'll see what's in there.
Now, before I ask my next question, I want to ask the audience to please share this one out far and wide. What just an absolute blessing of an opportunity here this Sunday to have Stephen joining us after a great conversation with, I didn't realize that you guys were friends with Reggie Middleton. And so such a small world. And so if you guys can, please do me a favor by sharing the space out. Let everyone know that we have Stephen stopping by, dropping some truth bombs. And my next question for you, Stephen, is Charles Hoskinson's involvement. What can you say about Charles' participation in the early stages of Ethereum, and why does he hate the XRP community so much? I'm just kidding on that, but what was his involvement on the early days there, and kind of when you were there with Ethereum?
Charles is a complex individual. So I'll tell you, effectively, kind of in many ways, Ethereum and Cardano were born in my house. So Charles and I were very close, for a long time. My kids called him Uncle Charles, and so I can tell you what happened back there. He was actually the one that was pushing to do everything and be as safe as we could. I can't say legally because there wasn't any standards to go by. We were going by analogy and trying to come up with a safe area to go into. So he was the most vigilant, and he's largely responsible for getting the laws in Zug passed, and he kind of went out there and convinced them that this was kind of the future of banking or what have you. And he also, I saw him run the Cardano ICO, and he ran that legally very, very tight. So from that perspective, Joe was, he talks a big game that he was, he was running the legal process. He was sitting by my feet, and I was teaching him what the hell it was, and he didn't understand half the shit of it. But it was Charles did understand it. So I would say, from a legal perspective, but he got kicked out before the ICO happened, and so he helped kind of set it up. I was really doing it, and I was more than anything, it was me doing it. I wasn't acting as an attorney. I didn't take a title intentionally. I didn't accept my ether. I spent 6 figures of my own money, and I didn't ask for reimbursement. If you put it all together, you're talking about 10 digits today. And I'm very glad I didn't take any of that. But Joe was the one much more risk tolerant, let's just say, to be fair. You know, he's the one that says, I don't care, I'm a Canadian citizen. And, you know, he just wanted to kind of get on with things. Um, so I would say, well, you know, it's puzzling to me. I think on one hand, Charles is a troll. And so it's, you know, you're dealing with like a really smart Gasparino, right? Like Gasparino's a moron. Like Charles is not a moron. And, you know, he kicks the hornet's nest sometimes, right? And, you know, it's like, uh, so that's part of it. And like, I've been in private groups with him for almost a dozen years right now, and within the group he trolls. I've seen this with him. So the part of like what he's doing is trolling sometimes. The other part about it is he's being very literal, and when he says that he doesn't believe that there was actual bribes, and I don't believe there were actual bribes necessarily either. You don't need to like I mean, like I keep making a joke, and I'm like, cash in an envelope is so 1980s. Like you can see what's happening right now. I mean, like Clayton is benefiting from what he did. Hinman is benefiting from what he did, and we have no idea how much they're making. They could be making plus that. You know, there was the 4 days. A lot of people don't know this. 4 days after this was the ethics office. You had to start reporting your. He said if you look at the Hinman depositions, you have to. He was in a rush to get that speech out. I don't know what the rush was. He didn't show it to any of the other commissioners, which is kind of like bizarre. But 4 days later, on June 18th, was when you had to start reporting your holdings of digital assets. So it was. I don't think there was any prohibition, for example, for anybody that has seen gone on to and been wrecked with 100x leverage. Like literally, I don't know that if Hinman would have been breaking any laws, other than the fact that it actually was a security. But let's just assume like it worked out. If he had just put $1 million, $500,000, $1 million into something an hour before his speech, and then when he got walked off the stage, sold it, that could be $200 million, right? And that's like, so there's so many other ways. I'm not saying he did that. I'm just saying that that's what Charles's point was, like they didn't give him money, right? And so,
and in response, I'd say that's kind of like a softball response to not actually delving into kind of the allegations and everything that we've put together. It's like the mainstream crypto news just disregarding this as a crypto conspiracy theory. It's like, no, there actually is something there. But to your point, it's not cash in an envelope. It's show up to our club anytime you want, unlimited trips to my island or whatever the deal may be, right? There's a bunch of different perks to being in these positions of power and the corruption that kind of overtakes them. Now, I wanted to ask you, so we had on one end, we have Charles Hoskinson, who is trying to really keep things clean. And I'll add that I actually do like Charles. I like listening to him talk about, capitalism, entrepreneurship, business, and crypto. And so I think he's a good guy. And so I can see what you're talking about as far as him trying to do everything right versus on the other end, kind of this smug attitude from Joe and maybe some of the others. But I wanted to ask you about Vitalik. So with Vitalik, I always thought, okay, this guy's definitely a little like kind of puppet boy of Russia. But now it appears that, you have a lot of Chinese influence as well. So is Vitalik kind of a controlled puppet in this scenario? Am I just making that up? What are your comments on kind of Vitalik, who he is and why he does what he does?
so it's a temporal question. So it's today and over the past number of years, in my opinion, and I think when the facts come out, it'll show uh, that he's a very carefully he's a Vitalik is not a person. It's a carefully crafted image that everybody wants to, that they want to believe is a certain way. And so that was, there's a team behind making that happen. And and he can play the part. He's like it's kind of like, I'm not saying his IQ. Somebody asked me, like, well, what about his IQ? You said his IQ is high. I said, yeah, his IQ is high. It doesn't mean he has decision making ability. It doesn't mean his analytical abilities are good. It doesn't mean he has experience. I said he screwed up just about every decision you possibly could. He couldn't even write the code. I mean, Gavin is the reason that Ethereum even exists. I mean, in terms of like coding. So yeah, to answer your question, he's a figurehead in my opinion. That does not mean he doesn't have any autonomy. I'm not saying he doesn't have any decision making, but I think Boring Sleuth, if you look at his research, it that's why he made that post where we kind of complement each other. I said to him, I'm like, this doesn't look like he's doing his own stuff in terms of his wallet, and because like he was doing trades at 4 in the morning Toronto time, but that wasn't 4 in the morning in China time. And if you look at it, the token, now this makes no sense. The tokens from the ICO went from the Genesis block to a wallet controlled by Wan Sheng. Then from that wallet set up Vitalik's wallet and the Ethereum Foundation's wallet and funded it. So there was an intermediary, and that intermediary we confirmed on chain. This is on chain, is controlled by Wan Sheng. They set up his wallets. So
we have more control probably coming from Chinese influence versus Russia is kind of what we've found so far.
Yeah, I mean, if I think Boring has put this out, of the first 2,000 blocks that were mined, 1,980, I believe, something like that, were mined by, he's traced them to Chinese miners, but more important, as important as that, he's also connected them to the wallets that were the majority purchasers of the ICO. So you've got this end, so let's just forget about the country for a second. His on-chain analysis, which I believe is very much dead on correct, is you've got an entity that took a majority position in the ICO that is also the same entity that is doing the vast majority of the mining. I think over time it was about 80%, where they were doing the 80% of the mining. And I don't know what he thinks in terms of, but it was a majority of the ICO also. And Preston Byrne, well, there's something very suspicious about that post that he sent me. Like, why am I holding on to the list? And, something's off on that one. But he did make an article in 2018, which I agree with. And if you look at it, it's just a graph, it's a chart of the money that flowed into the ICO. And here's like the kind of bizarre thing. I rented an office for Ethereum in the building. I was on the floor in where I was an AI guy. I actually have more inventions in AI than I do in crypto. So I opened this office, one for Ethereum and then another one for Consensus, because I started with Joe. And Joe was sitting in the office with me for the whole 42 days during the ICO. And his son was in there and a couple other people. It's not natural. If you go look at that, somebody can find that. Just type in Preston Byrne, Ethereum ICO. If you look at that chart, it's a very inorganic chart. Like, it's a very mathematically precise chart of how the money's flowing in. And I've been involved in more ICOs than anybody. I've never seen a chart like that. That's not how it works. Usually, like, there's a huge surge at the beginning, especially the incentive was to put money in at the beginning. Why would people be coming in later? But it was very consistent. It was like it was as if you had built an algorithm to be buying, which I believe is what actually happened. It was actually being run not by humans, but they had built a code to send the Bitcoin in. And then, and you've heard his talk about, there's no disguise the whales list. There is a list, I'm sure, of the email addresses that were sent, that the ether was sent to. But then you still have to match up those with a person, which I don't think is that impossible to do. I don't have that list, and I know who would have it, but they haven't. Nobody's gotten that list yet. Hey, Joe, here's a guy that you want to put on the speaker. This dude is the real deal here, and he was there from day one too.
Who would that be?
Joe, right there, Joe Dietz.
Oh, I don't know. I don't see him. I'll send him a mic.
Yeah.
Where's he at? Where's Joe at?
Joe.
I don't know how much longer do you have, Stephen? Oh, there he is.
I might not. I got him in like another 10 minutes if I'm not boring everybody.
No, you're not. I'm so excited. I feel like I got the exclusive on this story here. I know
Zach,
you went on to the other space, but you haven't really made any other appearances yet. So I appreciate the time, man.
No, I have.
Okay.
I just understand. I have. This is kind of a little cloudy, but I have an exclusive that I'm not supposed to be talking to any media until the big media hits, and that will be soon. I think you'll see something before the end of the month. I understand.
I'm just some little guy. I'm not an official media outlet, so
I appreciate what you're doing. I watch.
Thank you, Stephen. I guess I will not be selfish here for a few minutes here, and I'll let MetaMan ask a question, and then BDF had his hand up too, and then we'll welcome your friend Joel.
No, awesome. And Zach is not a little man, but I mean, I get it. He's not media, but yeah, you're safe here. But out of respect, thank you so much. I have a question. Didn't Charles also get his founder's initial income of Ethereum? Didn't he get his cut already?
I actually negotiated that deal. He got wages that were owed to him. I actually revamped the entire HR. It was such a mess. Like, it's kind of like a joke that they say I wasn't involved. I revamped literally every department in the company. In terms of his tokens, he and I spoke about this, and we both agreed not to take the tokens. We decided not, believe it or not, I decided not to put in money into the ICO in order to protect the project. So if the SEC comes after anybody, they would come after me. Like, that's kind of bizarre in hindsight, but okay, that's what I did. I will say I know who he gave it to. Can I confirm that it actually happened? Just like with, who's it talking about? What's his name? Preston Byrne. So, I mean, Preston put up like an email with Ethan Wilding, who was the one who you would send your email, your address and information for him to send you your ether, and he just kind of put the heading up there, but he didn't put the body of the email. I'll put mine up. It specifically says I did this for the cause. I'm not expecting any compensation. I don't want mine. Give it to such and such. And he didn't put that up there. And what was puzzling about it is he shows up on the list. I'm not saying he's lying, but I don't show up on the list. The tokens that I was supposed to get, the person I gave them to, it shows up. I know how much they were supposed to get, and I add mine and his, and that's the number that shows up for him. So if you turn down your tokens, you shouldn't show up on the list. I'm gonna punt on the Charles question until I do a little bit of research, because I am doing some research into that. But my understanding and my conversations with him at the time were that he was not going to accept it. I can't confirm it. But that's what he said at the time.
Yeah, I appreciate you don't have to. I mean, I don't want you to put yourself in a predicament. But then also, I'm sorry, Zach. One more follow up. Sorry, that's okay. Basically, wasn't there also like supposedly a discussion between him and Vitalik whether or not they wanted Ethereum to be public or I guess like a public good or like a private for profit company, and that was the reason, one of the reasons why he left.
So I'll say two things. First, the reason that he left was there was effectively a coup, and there was a meeting in Zug with these, founders, whatever the hell they're like so into their title, but whatever, and they came after the tech side. Basically, came after kind of the business side. I'm simplifying it, but effectively they came after Charles, Amir, Joe, and Anthony. Joe, whatever, he's a cockroach. He survives the nuclear war. I don't know, somehow he survived it. And like, right, and I have used a cockroach in many ways, but anyway, Anthony should have stayed on. Like he shouldn't have been. Like he was actually the only one that actually had real business experience in the entire group, other than myself. And Charles, agreed to go. And the issue was a trust issue, but at the same time, they transformed it from a for-profit into a nonprofit. There was always the idea of having a foundation, the way the Bitcoin has a foundation. But it was supposed to kind of just be for, evangelical reasons, so to speak, but so the second part to your question is wait until you listen to my conversation with him, because there's a major part of it is my saying that he made the wrong decision because Vitalik decided to go nonprofit, and the fact that he went nonprofit, that one decision is largely, I believe, responsible for the state of why crypto is still in the dark ages. And a lot of it, just as a little preview, is that think about incentives. Like if your incentive is just for Ether to go up, right? That's it. Your incentive is not for the Ethereum protocol to actually work and to have killer dApps that work, that people use, and to actually have, a real functioning, so it's like, you work for Microsoft or Apple, and it doesn't matter if any of the products work as long as the stock goes up. And so everybody became focused on the price of Ether. That's all anybody cared about. And they all left. Hence why he called me.
Right. They took the ETH and ran. Great. Now I want to give a chance here. BDF Coach has his hand up, and then we'll welcome Joel. BDF, how are we doing tonight, brother?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for letting me come up and speak. So I don't necessarily have a question because I'm doing a lot of listening lately. And that's really what my comment is about to be for and targeted to. So it's really great that Stephen came in here and expressed a lot of these concerns and some of the concerns that Reggie was speaking about earlier. So this is something I've been noticing, right? I've been very quiet on Twitter for like a week and some change or so because I've been primarily just listening, right? And I just want everybody that's in the space right now to know that there is a lot of money at play with these technologies and these platforms. There's a lot of money on this app. There's a lot of money that's going around. So you cannot think that every single person will be acting in good faith, or somebody that may come off as trustworthy will also act in good faith. So I'm telling you now, it is prudent and imperative that you don't necessarily have to be cynical, but you should definitely move with caution, because some of the people who are of, stated good intention, or who may seem like they have this intelligence, right, and this technical knowledge or this depth of source or whatever, like that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't try to jug you. or, manipulate you or use their influence in a way that will allow them to have the upper hand on you. And so I've noticed that from a lot of people. And I just want everybody else in here that's similar to me. Like, I might not be an expert. I might not be a major influence like Zach Rector, but I am a person who has been self-taught with some of this crypto stuff, who has been self-taught in financial industries and, global markets and the American financial system. And being from the streets, I know bullshit when I hear it. You just got to let somebody talk long enough, right? And so everybody in here, you've taken the time to invest your brain into something that can potentially empower you. So trust your intuition. Don't let nobody question your own intuition, right? Always be quick to listen and slow to move, because they might tell you that you're going to miss the train. They might tell you a moon day. They might tell you that this is the greatest opportunity if you don't switch up and switch over. But really, nobody ever knows, because even the best brokers in the world had no idea what the market's going to do. Thank you, Zach.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we've seen it. I mean, like he was pointing out with Vitalik's little facade, the little character image that they've created for Vitalik. So good points. Joel, welcome. Sounds like you're friends with Steven.
Yeah, we go back, for a fair bit.
Good stuff. Any comments on what Steven has shared here today with us?
I think I joined a little bit late, so Stephen and I have talked about many of these things before, but I'm not quite sure what was covered before I joined. So
awesome. Well, let me
Joe, so you guys know, is actually the creator of MetaMask.
Oh, that's low key, no big deal.
Yeah,
the creator of MetaMask is here with us. Thanks, Joel.
Well, you said no big deal. No, that's awesome, bro.
Yeah. Okay. And that's great. Ghost, I wanted to give you a chance to ask a question. Brought you up.
Sure. Thanks for having me up, Zach. Just a two-part question for Steven. A lot of the stuff he said makes a lot of sense. First part was your profile picture background there. You have a bat signal. Wondering if you can share anything with what that's about. And the second part is, do you, having worked in Ethereum and understanding the scalability issues, did you see whether pre-seg with Taproot, a version of Bitcoin would have been able to scale?
What was that? I didn't get the last part.
Sure.
What?
Do you see any version of Bitcoin that may have scaled or is able to scale the way Ethereum is not able to?
So okay. So before I get those two BDF codes, Sean, I just wanted to just add one thing to what he said. I agreed with everything you just said, and I would just say that a lot of the influencers that you're listening to on X, and when I say a lot, I mean, like, in my opinion, the majority are in one way or another, they're either there's some that are just like outright owned by a protocol or one specific area of the industry, and other ones are just aligned, and they're in. So most of what I would say you're hearing is they're talking their book because that's what they want you to hear. So it may, and that maybe there's some to deal with XRP. I mean, I don't think it would be the deal with XRP with the Ripple, the company, because I actually don't believe Ripple, the company, would do that. But they may be talking their book, and so a lot of them are when they say they're shilling and they're hidden shills, like they're owned. Don't take that lightly. I would say really make your own decisions, because this is a dangerous place. To answer your question, I'll start with the Bitcoin side. I think you got to go back to Roger Ver. I mean, Roger's a friend, and I think he was right, and I think the Bitcoin Core guys were wrong. And I don't think that's what Satoshi intended. Satoshi intended for Bitcoin, it's the core, to expand. right? So you had all of these issues, and they didn't want, and Bitcoin Core, could have grown the block size, all of one argument after another, segregated witness, and all this kind of crap, and they just didn't want that. So then they've got and then you've got the same issues that you've got where everybody's bringing on these layer twos. They've got Elizabeth Stark came in, really promoted the Lightning Network and there's good stuff about it. If you hear Elon, he says it sucks. And in the same breath, he also said XRP is the only one that he would use on X. I don't think he owned Twitter at the time, but anyway. So I think it could have scaled. Do I see a version of it that could right now? I mean, don't make me say BSV.
Wait.
Like,
Stephen, did you just say that Elon said that he would use XRP?
Elon said they asked him if there was any. I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm paraphrasing. They had asked him whether or not if he felt that there was any token that would be suitable to be used as a currency on Twitter. I think this was like last November or so. And if you look at the spaces, you can see, I think Vitalik was on there, Joe was on there, Brad Garlinghouse was on there. And what he said was, he went to Lightning and Lightning Network said sucks. He was like really, said it absolutely is garbage. I think he talked a little bit about Doge, but says it wasn't. And then he said the only one that he sees right now that could be used, in his opinion, was XRP. That's what he said.
No way. Why have I not seen this? This is crazy. This is like breaking.
Yeah.
If you have that,
I have it.
You should send that to me.
I'll send it to you.
Is that a new thumbnail, Zach?
Holy cow! Are you kidding me? Now, okay. So I wanted to say this, Stephen. Sorry to interrupt you. But speaking of getting interrupted, I was losing my mind when I was listening in on your Twitter space, and you're dropping all these truth bombs. You're going off. I'm screen recording and just loving every minute of it. And then they have to cut away for today's sponsor, who's the 9-inch exchange for meme coins. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me, man. Like, we're about to uncover the truth of the whole crypto market, and we got to go shill a Hex meme coin exchange? Like, this is why our space is so messed up. Like, I was losing my mind during that exchange.
Yeah,
but,
my attorney who's on this call right now is probably losing his mind right now. There's Mike Scotto.
I saw him come in.
Look, I can say, sorry, Mike, you can yell at me later. Listen, I know how everybody's being really rough on them, and I hear die, and there's no harm that's going to be done. It's an NFT. There's a recording on the NFT. There's a transcript on the NFT. There's nothing they can do. Like, there's no way to sabotage this, right? I mean, if you give it to them a day or two earlier, and then they have I think it's a good thing if it's on their Twitter Spaces and they have it, because their Twitter Spaces is got a pretty broad range of people, and not people just in crypto, because Mario draws a lot of people, and so do Rand and Scott. I mean, they draw a lot of people. I don't feel like, look, this could turn out to be wrong, but I think they were the last Twitter Spaces I wasn't on. Deaton came on, and I think they were more than fair with me. Like, they didn't knock me. They were I think pretty complimentary towards me. And again, I know these guys. We go back a long time. So I don't feel like it's a trap with them. On the other hand, if you heard Rand on the thing, he was just like, "What's the ramification?" Because they know I'm not bluffing. They know that, and so they just want to know what's the ramification.
You could hear a little tremble in Rand's voice. You could just hear it a little. It's not something that they're really comfortable talking about. And yeah, I think that's, to your point, why he wants to jump to the ramifications. Now, I want to give Poor a chance to ask his question.
Oh, hey, Zach. Thanks for having me up to speak. I just had a question for Steven. So we've all noticed you becoming more vocal and making a lot of major claims while also trying to align yourself with the XRP community. And, we're glad to have you. But I just wanted to ask, are you clean from the abuse of alcohol or any drugs that might discredit the integrity of your reputation?
What? Really?
Bro.
That was an interesting question. Yes. Am I clean? I don't know. I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. Um, no, I don't. Yes.
Why would you ask such a
It's,
I'm
personal
sorry
question,
about that.
Paul, like that?
Good to hear.
It's an interesting question, but I have no problem answering it. Yeah, my attorney's on here. He can answer it for you. Uh, but yeah,
I'm sorry to hear it. Sorry about that, Steve. Don't
that's
worry. That
I
gets
know.
old.
Let me just correct something there. I didn't align myself with the XRP community. That happened by accident, and I happened to. I grew a fondness because and I've said this is like the kind of the first community or one of very few that I found not to be toxic. Right? And I saw how you guys were coming together and being cohesive, and and I have a lot of experience with communities, but I am not. I don't want anybody to think that I am trying to align myself with the community. That I am. I mean, I'm playing it. I know. I'm having fun with you guys too, like with Gasparino. But how can you help? Okay, so that's my. If there's no drugs or alcohol, does Gasparino count as an addiction? Maybe, messing with him, all right? But
I love it.
but there's some
I love it.
seriousness there, right? I'm asking a question. I'm still haven't made any accusations. I've just asked him questions, and he still has declined to answer those questions, right? And so, for anybody who thinks that I'm like this is like any way of me gaining popularity, understand that what I'm doing right now, aside from I have no. My attorney, you can put him on. He will confirm this. This is not benefiting me in any way. It's only harming me. It's only putting me in a risky situation. And for everybody who thinks that like 75,000 XRP people loving me and then like billions of other people hating me, right? Like that's not a really good. Like I should not run for public office because I'd probably lose pretty badly, right? So this is not a. If I'm going for a popularity contest, I picked the wrong route to do that, right? So I don't know. Hopefully that makes some sense.
No, I think you're spot on. And from everything that I've heard from you and in your true objectives here, it's about saving this country, right? This is much bigger than XRP. This is much bigger than just crypto. You've highlighted how we have three other agencies that have been weaponized to come after the American people, and many of us in the community have felt the force of the SEC coming after and putting a cloud over the XRP community. And so it is definitely refreshing to see someone with true motives. You don't own any XRP.
No.
You don't even own, the underlying asset here that you're, helping us make a case for. I think that you've been very true and very honest and forthcoming, and I definitely appreciate it. I'm sorry about that last question. Now, I do
And by
want
the
to
way,
welcome up.
you'll hear one thing in the recording. You'll actually hear this is a 2015 recording. You'll hear me using Chris and Ripple as an example to Vitalik in terms of ways of properly running a company. So, I mean, I know these
I'm
guys for a
definitely
long
excited to
time.
hear this recording. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. For those of you who missed it, it looks like we're going to be getting the recording this week, released as an NFT on Ethereum and the XRP ledger. And you're going to be hosting it on another website. Hopefully, we got some backups. You better reach out to Elon and make sure that he can beam it through Starlink or something so that we can keep it up there. I want to give a chance here to welcome Tease Crypto. How you doing, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm doing fine. I just had a few quick questions, and I do mean quick. So, Steven, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear.
Hey, so these questions are hypothetical in nature and for entertainment purposes only. This is simply your perspective, so I don't want you to feel, or your attorney to feel, that I'm asking these within an official capacity. But I do have a curiosity regarding the relationship between JP Morgan, the SEC, and Ethereum. For entertainment purposes, of course, would it be your opinion, and not the official capacity of any other institution, that JP Morgan essentially, for all intensive purposes, owns Ethereum essentially, and leveraged the SEC after not being able to gain a monopoly on the asset or the ledger, technology-wise.
I don't think I could. No, I can't. I don't think I could even opine on that about whether or not they own Ethereum. And does that mean that they have the majority of the tokens, or is there some other kind of influence? I know Joe's on the record of saying that they came in prior to launch. I was with Joe when we started Consensus until close to the end of 2014, and the launch was somewhere in the middle, like it was the June or July of 2015 when they actually launched. So that means I don't remember JP Morgan being involved during my time. It doesn't mean it couldn't have been happening without me knowing it. You know, but could it have happened between that January and that period? That's possible. You know, but you're asking the question in terms of ownership. You know, so I can't really speak to that in terms of you know, whether or not they had influence. You know, I can't speak to whether or not they had influence. What I know is that J.P. Morgan coin. What I told you earlier. I mean, you know, these are just logical conclusions. They had J.P. Morgan coin. They transferred it to Consensus, and you know, some other unusual things happened. But I think a little bit of the J.P. Morgan angle on it, while it may be important, you know, may also be a little bit of a red herring. You know, it's like if it was, you know, it's going to be some bank, right? If what we believe, if what people believe is what's happening, you know, if it's not them, it's like it's actually a bigger issue.
Thank you, Stephen. And the only reason that I asked that question is because JP Morgan obviously is responsible for a huge portion of cross-border transaction volume. With that being said, obviously they would have a heavily vested interest in the correspondent banking system. And we know that Ripple and the XRP token and ledger essentially threaten that monopoly that they reign supreme over. So that was kind of the reasonings behind my question, is that I wonder if, you know, U.S. institutions that are responsible for that amount of volume and value moving across borders would have that incentive essentially to gain a monopoly on a competitor and then leverage regulatory agencies that are federal to essentially stifle or control a private entity like Ripple while they essentially continue on with trying to monopolize on the system. So that's all. I appreciate the answer. And thank you, Zach, for letting me up to ask that question.
Stephen, your dog is barking at you.
Right. I've got about another 5 minutes if anybody has anything else.
Yeah. Let's get a couple last questions in. MetaMan, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, I have two for one, if I can get that. Thank you so much.
Make it quick.
Okay, so basically, so just I want to confirm: is it confirmed that JP Morgan owns a patent on some code on Ethereum? And also, the second one is, this is like off key, but what's your involvement with Casper?
I don't have an answer to the first one. I've read, like everybody else, I've read stuff about that, but I don't have any insight. I don't have any proprietary knowledge about that. Casper, you'll be hearing a lot more. I was, at the time of the arrest of the fabricated crime, I was chairman of the board of a company called Adaptive Holdings, which is their parent company, and a co-founder, and did a lot of work over there. So there's more involvement. There's more that's going to be coming out on that one. You'll see that in my legal process.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephen. You know, it's been a pleasure having you to follow up Reggie. Really a complete and rounded off space here covering everything. And as always, we'll be watching, we'll be supporting. And yeah, just keep up the great work, man. Like I said earlier, I think that your intentions have been true. We've been able to see right through just an act of full transparency and just trying to save our country, which is where many of us find ourselves. This is much bigger than XRP, much bigger than crypto. That's just one of the battlefields that we've been fighting on. But
can you put Mike on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can Mike Scotto, can you put him on?
Yeah, your lawyer?
Yeah, I mean, I want to introduce you, like, I want him to tell you his background.
That'd be fun.
And I just want to hear from Mike. Can you put him on speaker? There we go.
I sent him an invite. All right, now we're having ourselves a real party.
Yeah, we got Quincy also. Quincy in the audience as well. Zach.
What a time! How are we doing, Michael? Thank you.
Good. I didn't realize Steve was going to be on because sometimes he doesn't let me know because he knows I don't like talking about stuff. So glad I caught it. There are things that obviously are going to become public and whatnot. My background, Steve, I guess, I come out of the Manhattan DA's office. I was there for 22 years, 20 under Robert Morgenthau. I left as the chief of the Rackets Bureau, and I do white collar criminal defense, and I represent people who are innocent, right? which actually turns out Steve was innocent. They created a case, they fabricated a case, and again, you'll know more about this in the coming weeks. But I appreciate the opportunity to have Steve on. And actually, what I like the most about it was Steve was talking about things other than the case, really, about his expertise in the space and whatnot. So I'm really happy when I hear Steve talk about stuff like that. And I appreciate you giving him an outlet to do that.
Yeah. Mike, can you just confirm from a legal or financial perspective, is me unveiling this, is there any benefit to me in any way?
No, there's really nothing in Steve's benefit for unveiling, why we believe he was, framed, maliciously prosecuted. It really has to do with, his interest in getting the truth out. And just to that other that other question about Steve's, alcohol, substance abuse problems. I've known Steve for 3 years, spent a lot of time with him, never seen him take a drink or used any drugs. So, I'll vouch for him on that end as well.
Yeah, please disregard the trolls. I tell you what, I think when you poke at this thing a little bit, these people try to shoot for some low ones, and that's just shitty. But it sounds like, Stephen, that we got the green light to do this every week on an ongoing basis, and we can continue to uncover the full mystery. We got the approval from the lawyer.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
no, I appreciate it. I really do. And to your point, I think without a doubt, you just listen to Stephen's story. It's incredible insight that you can't get anywhere else. Like being in those early conversations with Ethereum and creating the utility token. Like I said, Stephen definitely has a place there. And when you listen to him in the other space, there's no one really questioning that. Right. It might make folks uncomfortable, but without a doubt, he was there.
Right. Yeah, he was. And again, that's one of the reasons why we think that, if you look at the papers, and, the papers are what led the government to dismiss the case against him. It was a made-up case. There was no truth to it. Evidence was fabricated, and obviously we know it happened. The question is, the extra is, why? And so that gets into all the stuff that Steve's going to be revealing. And again, in order to prove our case, we don't have to prove that, but I think it's important for the public record that the public knows why we believe this happened.
And Michael, since we got you here, could I get your general comments kind of on the three-letter agency bureaucracy beast overreach that we're kind of up against? Just kind of your broader comments in general on
Yeah, I'd
that.
rather let our papers speak. I mean, if you look at the papers we filed in the criminal case, we pretty much established it was a concerted effort between the FBI, the SEC, the Justice Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they were basically just trying to make some sort of a case against Steve. The problem when the government sets out to make a case against somebody is, many times the person hasn't done anything wrong. So then, the government has to resort to other means. And I think that's probably all I can say.
Respect that for sure, 100%. Well, Stephen, I want to respect your time, man. You've been here so gracious with your time already here today with us. And hope to have you back here soon. We'll be watching your story. I will continue to do my part along with the rest of the community to stand behind you and support, sharing out your message. And we're definitely going to be on the edge of our seats waiting for you to drop that information this week or whenever you do end up. So
Thanks.
thank
And
you again.
whoever is in, if anybody's in touch with Di, I listened to the video. I heard what he had to say. And I don't think there's any, I will give it
I
to
can
the
reach out to him.
community to distribute it as wide as you can.
Yeah.
I heard
Yeah.
him. So somebody
I'll
figure
reach
out how
out.
to get him to reach out to him to tell me how he wants me to do that, and I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think the conclusion, in conclusion, you got the full support of the Army here, and like I said, this is bigger than XRP for so many of us. We're passionate patriots, just like yourself, and so yeah, I'll reach out to DAI. Huge shout out to him and his work. I mean, he's still off of Twitter. Hopefully, I don't get in trouble for having you on, but if I do, that's part of the cost and the sacrifice that we make in fighting the good fight. So, Stephen, I just want to thank you for coming on here again today.
It was my pleasure.